While facing an adverse situation, what is the best thing we can do when there is no light and faith leaves us with no options? Can a human mind adapt into the worst of all situations, and up to what extent? This year was considered to be the worst of all years. But we all know mankind has faced much worse situations over history. Situations in which man was left with no hope. Situations like other pandemic, Holocaust, wars, and many other worst of situations. But people still survived. People had hope. There were and are people who couldn't cope up. We are definitely in a better scenario. But what is the thing that's making us suffer? Is suffering relative? Can we compare our sufferings to others? The cause of suffering, is it physical, psychological, spiritual, or social? Will our sufferings end? Viktor Frankl in his book answers all these questions. The book can be divided into two main parts: Frankl's experience in the camp, concepts of logotherapy. In 1942, Frankl and his parents, wife and brother were arrested and sent to a concentration camp. Frankl's father died there within 6 months. Over the course of 3 years, Frankl was moved between 4 concentration camps, including Auschwitz, where his brother died and his mother was killed. The book begins with Frankl describing the horrific things done in the camp. Frankl first describes about the physical conditions of the camp. He tells us about a march called Death March, in which people were forced to march, and the unfit, including pregnant women, children, sick people, and all the unfit ones, were made to enter the gas chamber which was used to kill them. In such situations too, people didn't lose hope. They were doing their best to look good and strive and survive in the concentration camps. As we move forward in the book, the horrific conditions of the camp increases, but Frankl's main goal is to tell us about the willpower of people and how some of people were still living in the camp. Despite of the conditions, people still had their values and beliefs. The external environment didn't change much of the characteristics of these people. There were all types of people. Frankl writes, even though conditions such as lack of sleep, insufficient food, and various mental stresses may suggest that inmates were bound to react in certain ways, in the final analysis, it becomes clear that the sort of person the prisoner became was the result of an inner decision and not the result of camp influences alone. Fundamentally, therefore, any man, even under such circumstances, describe what shall become of him, mentally and spiritually. He may retain his human dignity even in a concentration camp. Frankl speaks on comparing suffering with other. He writes, suffering is omnipresent. To draw an analogy, a man's suffering is similar to the behavior of gas. If a certain quantity of gas is pumped into an empty chamber, it will fill the chamber completely and evenly, no matter how big the chamber. Thus, suffering completely fills the human soul and conscious mind, no matter whether the suffering is great or little. Therefore, the size of human suffering is absolutely relative. All the prisoners of the camp lost their possessions, their loved ones, and everything, but still they were having an identity and a definite character. Frankl tells us that and gives the message that we are not our possessions but much more than that. He tells us about the importance of meaning in life. He says, a man who becomes conscious of the responsibility he bears towards the human being who affectionately waits for him, or to an unfinished work, will never be able to throw away his life. He knows the why for his existence and will be able to bear almost any how. After his life in the camp, Frankl, remembering his experience of camp, worked on his theory and named it logotherapy. This therapy helped a lot of people in finding a purpose in their life. The word is derived from two words, logos, a Greek word that translates as meaning, and therapy as therapy. There are three main components that are the heart of Franklian philosophy. Each person has a healthy core. The primary focus is to enlighten a person to their own internal resources and provide them with the tools to use their inner core. Life offers you purpose and meaning. It does not own you a sense of fulfillment or happiness. Finding meaning with logotherapy. By creating a work or accomplishing some task. By experiencing something fully or loving somebody. By the attitude that one adopts toward unavoidable suffering. Frankl's intention of writing the book was not to drag sympathy for people living in the camp, but he wanted to show us the inner strength that we all humans possess, no matter what the condition is.